Namaskar and a very good afternoon, everyone. Namaskar to all the aspiring Swayambhus and all the Swayambhus out there. It is said that investment in knowledge is the best investment because it gives you best interest. Now, this is very interesting. Why? Because we are going to meet a gentleman who is surrounded with numbers. And not just surrounded with numbers, he is a whiz kid with numbers. So, we are going to meet a whiz kid who is also a CFO. And I would like to welcome and say namaskar to Shri Lalit Malik.
नमस्कार नमस्कार नमस्कार
सर, आपको यहाँ पर मिलकर बहुत ही अच्छा लग रहा है एंड थैंक यू फॉर गिविंग योर टाइम. यू आर अ वेरी बिजी मैन.
आई थिंक मुझे मिलके बहुत अच्छी प्रसन्नता हो रही है एंड आई एम लुकिंग फॉरवर्ड टू वेरी एंगेजिंग डिस्कशंस एंड आई एम रियली थैंकफुल फॉर गिविंग दिस अपॉर्चुनिटी टू बी पार्ट on this discussion.
Welcome once again, sir. So I would like to introduce and share some information about Malik sir. He is a BCom graduate. He was the youngest CS. He still is a youngest CS. And he has done his BCom is FCA, ICWA, ACS, LLB, and CPA from State Board, Colorado, USA. He is the Chief Financial Officer in Dabur India Limited. He has got 30 years of experience in various functions of finance and accounts, treasury, merger and acquisitions, legal, secretarial, and taxation in India and abroad. Prior to Dabur, he worked with Sharp and Tannin, Philips, Gillette, Procter and Gamble, American Express, and Mozabear Limited. So, when did you complete all these qualifications? This lifetime, or you have taken some carry forward from the previous birth?
I think it is obviously I learned when I was doing my basic education, I did all together, except for my CPA in US, which I did it after 30 years of age. But before that, I think I did all by the age of 23. I was able to complete all the qualifications.
So, did you attend day school and night school? Day college and night college?
So in fact, I will tell you, when I was going in college, I did my CA and BCom together, and I could not attend my college lectures regularly. So it was most likely, just having few lectures in BCom, but focus more on articleship and doing CA. So that's how I was able to manage two subjects or two courses together.
Sir, you are now surrounded with visual boards and numbers. But when did you realize as a student that, numbers speak to me?
Well, I think it is from my childhood. I was very clear from the beginning of my childhood that number is the only area which attracts me, and number talk to me. And I was very clear that the finance is going to be my field. So I kept on pursuing my interest. And still I am. I can still tell you I am still a student. And there is a lot to learn in this field. So that's the way my passion is.
Sir, you are a number whisperer, huh?
That's something is very beautiful, if you really know that this number actually has a lot of implications, even on your life, even on your business, even on your cash flow, liquidity, etc. And one of the important thing I realized early in my life is that whatever business you may do, finance is a lifeblood of the business. You can't do without having an adequate understanding and knowledge of finance in any field. You can have different functions, but finance is there in all the functions, whether it is manufacturing, sales, purchasing, research, everywhere. Finance is the lifeblood of any business, and even for your household expenditure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is our lifeline, sir. Lifeline. We can't do without it. Nobody can. Sir, the moment we speak about finance, we have to speak about CA, because in India, CA and finance go hand in hand. So, what information would you like to share with aspiring CAs, especially when, as a student, they want to pursue CA, and the entry level is very easy. So then they think, oh, I've got it. And then, it becomes difficult level by level. So it goes to their head. Does it go to their head? Maybe you can recollect your days as a CA student yourself and your friends. What was their reaction once they cleared the entry level? Uh, you know, how did it go about? How should
Well,
a student think about the next level?
sure. I think one thing is very important that, the pyramid starts getting narrower and narrower as you progress, because the percentage clearance in our time was not more than 2 to 3% at every stage. And I think very important thing that I remember, the first class when I attended of my CA entrance, there were 100 students, and I was told that, out of this 100, maximum 5 will clear entrance. Of that 5, maximum 2 will clear inter. And if you are lucky, maximum 1% from your class will clear final. So now you can imagine, if you really want to pursue, are you willing to give up that kind of efforts, which can make you as that person out of the class of 100 students? And we all looked at each other and we thought that, oh my God, how is it going to happen? Now, but that gave us a big foundation for us, because you cannot sit comfortably after clearing your first step. In fact, you should be prepared that it will only start getting tougher and tougher, because then you will be competing with the absolutely exceptional students. And within that, you have to score better. So it gives you a competitive spirit. It makes you stretch your limits, and it makes you work harder so that you are able to be among the few ones who are able to clear their final. And I think that has kept on in our mind, and it was never entered to the mind that you have qualified as CA, because once we cleared one course, we looked at the opportunity which were possible in other courses like costing, which is ICWA or CES and all. So therefore, I think it was never that, that is an end. These were only means and a stepping stone for us to go forward.
Correct. Perfectly said, sir. Sir, you mentioned the word internship. So there are some kids who go for a dummy internship, or they go to small firms thinking that अरे ज़्यादा काम नहीं रहेगा, छोटे firm में कम काम रहेगा. So what is your suggestion and advice on that?
Well, when people think that, there is a short-term or shortcut to a thing, I think that actually harms them in the long run in a big way. I know for a student during my time who stood first in the rank for the CA final, but it was complained that she did not have any practical experience which she would have acquired through internship. And when they found out it was dummy, they took away her rank. So I think there are always two ways. One is, you find an easy way, but it's a wrong way. The other is a difficult way, but the right way. I think one has to choose which is right for your life. And I think that's very important. I would strongly urge every student to go for that rigor of articleship, internship, working in corporates, because that is the foundation learning that will take them long. Otherwise, they will have trouble once they are thrown into the practical aspect, and they may not be able to cope up.
Correct. So perfectly said that your aptitude and attitude both will be important, and how you deliver at the job will be important once you join a firm. Sir, once a student completes CA, he thinks, okay, this is a major achievement. Is there something else which a student should pursue with CA?
Right. I think there are two aspects to this. One is on the technical side, and second, I would talk on the softer skills. If one wants to pursue and is done CA, I think it is a good achievement. However, if one wants to really expand in the all aspect of profession, then there are other courses which are like cost and works accountant, which is ICWA, CS, which is the company secretary, which talks about various laws, LLB, which is the labor or the legal aspects, CFA, which is the chartered financial analyst, which talks about the analysis and forex, etc., or talk on the MBA, which talks about the overall management. So these are the avenues available on the technical side. But I want to share a very important thing, since I had done all these three things, including LLB, the 4 things, and I entered a corporate profession. And my boss told me that having the technical qualification gives you entry in the organization. But if you really want to be successful, you have to work on your softer skills and on your leadership skills, which can be teamwork, it will be innovation, drive for results, working together, and also challenging innovation. So you have to work primarily on your softer skills. Invariably, people who succeed in life are not the one who have only technical qualifications. They are the one who know the leadership qualities, who know softer skills, who can take people together, who can motivate people and can multiply themselves to achieve the higher and higher results. I think so that is where the differentiation comes. So I would say technical qualification only serves 10 to 15% in your success. Remaining 80 to 85% is your personal skills, your leadership skills, your softer skills, your innovation, your drive for results.
Perfect, perfect. Sir, since you have done all the possible faculties of finance, you are the right person to ask this question. Sir, CA, ICWA, CS, when we listen to these jargons, we only know what is the full form, but we really don't know who is doing what. So for a layman, could you please share what does CS, CA, ICWA mean and function?
Sure. So I think finance is a very vast field. When I talk about CA, the basic requirement is the accounting standards or the bookkeeping. So how do you maintain your profit and loss? How do you maintain your balance sheet? How do you pass your entries? That is what the chartered accountant course primarily talks about. And there are various rules which are governed by the Institute of Chartered Accountant of India and accounting standard, which is called Ind AS. So it is governed by that, and there are many parameters which are required to be complied with. And the career can also be and become an auditor who will audit these accounts. So the big firms, etc., they also appoint them as the auditor. So that is as far as the chartered accountant is concerned. As far as the cost accountancy is concerned, it talks mainly about the manufacturing expenses and its controls, which means how do you have your standard costing, your marginal costing, what it would mean to increase the capacity utilization, how can you save the production wastage, how can you improve the yield. So as far as the manufacturing production related accounting analysis and improvement standards are concerned, that is governed by the cost accountants. Then comes to the company secretary, where you talk about the law. So all the companies are governed by the company law board, or if they are listed entity, they are governed by the SEBI, which is the Security and Exchange Board of India. Now, in order for any corporate to have that transparency compliances, needs to have a proper board meeting, shareholders meeting, submission to the stock exchange, the media communication, etc., insider trading. So all those compliance requirements are done through the company secretariatship course, and it is also legally required for the corporates or the companies who are listed or unlisted private limited to have the company secretary based on their certain criteria. So it also becomes a statutory position certain point in time. Then you talk on the CFA, which is Chartered Financial Analyst. So now you see a lot of research analysts to talk about how the shares are going to move, securities are going to move, Forex is going to move. So those are the areas. It's again a very vast field, which CFA teaches you how to have expertise into those analysis, those areas, whether it is commodity exchange, whether it is share stock market exchange, whether it is foreign exchange. How do we expand our horizon to have the value addition into these fields? Then, of course, in all these underlying, if you have a law qualification, that has again many areas. It can be Contract Act, it can be litigation, it can be Criminal Act, it can be commodities exchange. So again, it is a very vast field. But in any business, any corporate, if you have that knowledge, it helps you to have a proper documentation, proper control, and proper remedial action with regard to the compliance that you do. And not to forget, many brands you see, they have something called IPRs, Intellectual Property Act, how to protect your brand. I think that's another very important area. So again, law is a very vast field, but very differentiated areas on that. Now, if you add up all these, These all are important foundation to run a business successfully. And for any successful business, the mantra is to have sustainable, profitable growth. Now, these functions help you to have growth, have profitable, but have sustainable in the long period. And that determines the stakeholder value who invest into your corporate. So I think that's the importance of each and every course or the field that you have. And that's how it adds value to any organization or business.
Sir, it is so vast. Just by giving us prima facie information, I think I will have to sing the Breathless song now. So much to learn, and it's difficult to cover in a short span of time. But you have given us the gist of each course, sir. When the candidate is learning CA, he thinks I have to engross myself 24/7 learning CA. So, which are the skill sets which he bypasses while learning CA, which are actually very crucial along with CA?
Sure. I think study and technical knowledge is very important. But apart from that, which I just mentioned earlier, practical experience in the articleship actually adds a lot of value to understand the syllabus that one is going through. Having said that, I think one should not have lopsided growth. It is very important that they also place importance to their mental health, their physical health, their emotional health, and their technical health. Because invariably what happens is that if one neglects any of them, then there is always an imbalance. And if one really wants to give its best, the person needs to be physically strong. And it is not just physical, it has to be mentally strong, because it's not an easy course. So you have to prepare yourself to face difficulty and yet come out as a winner and willing to give your extra more than 100% to the field that you are choosing. And it has to come as a passion, as a hobby, and not as a burden. So your mental strength, your emotional strength, your physical strength, and your spiritual strength has to be balanced along with your efforts that you put, because it is very important that you are able to understand the purpose of this course and how you are going to create your own career and take your path forward. So I would say that it is very important that the right balance is maintained by the students if they really want to go far and not just for the purpose of clearance. Because again, clearing exam is only a first step.
Correct.
The real journey starts after that. So one needs to keep that in mind and prepare oneself for that.
Right, right. So clearing exam is just one step. Please remember that learning mode has to be on forever. Sir, you are, as a CFO, you are into raising funds, you are into allocating funds, evaluating company performance, financial data everywhere. So a very basic question, if there is somebody who is into startup, right? So which are the suggestions on what to start and what to stop in case of finance for
Sure.
startups especially?
I think first of all, it's very important to understand the business idea and to evaluate the longevity of that particular idea. Because, if one is moving in the startup business, perhaps there are another 10 people are also working on similar idea. So one needs to have that uniqueness of the idea, which can take them through long. I think that is the most important area. Once one has decided on that, then it is important to see the feasibility evaluation of that particular idea when converted into action. What I mean by that is that once you work on those ideas, how it is going to create value, whether it is going to reach out to millions or billions of people, or it is only selected people. Can I be scaled up very high? Can it be made profitable? Can it last longer? Can it survive the ups and downs of economy? Because let's not forget that we are all living in VUCA world. That means we have volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, and it is going to prevail. Whether we are able to pass through all that and be prepared for ups and downs in the business in view of its viability. The third aspect of that, once you have done these two things, then the question is about funding. How do you generate money? Because every startup, the biggest challenge is to have that money to go through. Because one has to remember that you will not start earning from day one.
True.
You have to keep on investing. And once you have a strong idea and you have got the feasibility, I think you will get funding, you will get the support even from the external factors like PE funding, etc. But then you have to keep on performing as you have promised or as you have planned. And therefore, you have to keep the contingency in mind while doing that projection. And once you have to monitor your progress, and you should have the flexibility to amend your plans as per the changed circumstances. Because remember, you have to survive the long term. Longevity is the key. And that is where I think some of these startups have a challenge, because the ideas, number one, are also implemented by many. Idea number two, they cannot have that feasibility. Idea number three is perhaps the liquidity. They get blocked sometimes because they don't have funding. So one needs to plan that funding aspect also till the time you are not able to generate money out of this current business. So those things should be there. And last but not the least, one needs to have a backup plan. Because I think in the world that we all live in, one needs to keep that backup plan. Even in business, we call it as a business continuity practice, BCP. So one needs to keep that very strongly in mind, that if that doesn't work, do I have any backup or any deviation possible on that? So once you do that, I think there is no end to it. And there are many things which have started in a small way have become big. I do remember when 2008 crisis happened, all those new things that came up like Ola, Uber, Airbnb, and, so all those things came up from there and became very big, right? And today we are talking about, WhatsApp is there, Facebook is there, we are talking technology. I think they did not start profitability day one, but that particular idea was there for a long-term period, and the way they had nurtured it over a period of time, I think that's very, very important. So one has to keep this aspect in mind to make sure that the startup succeed and they add value in the long run.
Perfect, sir. So when you were sharing the growth cycle or the idea cycle from the business idea to actually earning money up to the backup plan, I was just thinking on this manner that you were talking about reforecasting and an introspection. The cycle which you mentioned, have a business idea, see whether it creates value, monitor it, make it flexible, amend it as required, right? Ensure that it gives you results, and then also have a backup plan. We also follow a similar cycle in our life too. So I was just
Absolutely.
thinking, is your reforecasting also connected to introspection and retrospection, sir? Anything you would like to share on this?
Absolutely. I think the beauty of this aspect is that, even in your day-to-day household, you can actually apply the same thing. Because, let's keep translate into our world. 4 months back, nobody thought that we all will be, isolated with social distances, will be working. Perhaps we never thought that we will have this kind of, interaction happening and people listening to us and watching us, etc. Now, what is very important is that, is one flexible enough to convert those challenges into opportunities? And that is where one needs to be flexible enough in order for us to navigate those challenges and yet come out as a winner. And that's why this longevity is the key in any aspect. And that applies to even our day-to-day household expenditure, our day-to-day living for that matter. I think it applies everywhere. And therefore, I say, when we talk about finance is not just for business, it is for your own individual also. And the principle applies equally well wherever you want to apply.
Sir, you are matching it so much in real life that, we are able to understand it very well. Sir, no matter how big or small the business is, new or, settled business, there are people who will concentrate too much on technical aspect, or there will be people who will concentrate too much on sales aspect, and they will make money, but they may not manage money. So I wanted to understand from you, that even a small leak sinks a ship. So which are the small expenses which you have to actually, observe very carefully, which we generally neglect or overlook, sir?
Sure. I would like to quote Warren Buffett's small statement, and I really admire his learnings. So he said that, normally people think that one can save out of whatever is left from expenditure that one has incurred. He says you should first save, and whatever is left should be spent. Now, that's a beautiful principle, but when you really look at in practical life, normally people don't tend to do that. Their savings are only to the extent, they are left after they've spent, and vice versa doesn't work. Now, same applies to business. In business, I mentioned that the terminology is sustainable, profitable growth. So growth comes from top line, but profitability comes from cost controls. So therefore, it is very important that one works on the zero-based budgeting concept, where you don't say last year I spent 100, so I'll spend 110. No, you have to ask yourself, every expenditure, is it something I can do without, or I have to incur that expenditure? Once you agree on that expenditure is required, then you have to find out whether it is possible to have some better option to get the. So therefore, you must look for those options. Third, once you have done that, you should also have that ability to do the bargaining part, or finding out whether I can further reduce it. And then you should also decide whether it is required to immediately, or I can wait for some time. So can I do phasing of that? So that, it's not that I incur all the expenditure today and it has to match with my revenue. So depending upon my income, I have to also have that flexibility again on reducing or increasing your expenditure. And you have to always make sure that you live within your means and not exceed. The other very important aspect is, one is the profitability, but second is liquidity. Because most of the corporates that you see are in trouble, not because they were not profitable, but because they did not manage their liquidity well. So you have to ensure that you are able to pay, because if you are stuck somewhere and you have invested where you can't take the money out, then your day-to-day operation will get interrupted. Right. And that can create a big problem. So I think it is very important that one takes into account control over cost, phasing over cost, questioning whether it is required or it can be avoided, and ensuring the liquidity and profitability balance is kept in such a way that it does not interrupt your day-to-day operations or your day-to-day business. So that again applies both for your individual as well as for your business. So you need to maintain some liquidity for your contingencies, even in your individual life. Same, you require it in your business life.
Perfect. So we need to be careful at every juncture and analyze right from the time of whether this expenditure is required or can we do without it. Sir, yes. There is a very thin line between being a miser, being tight-fisted, and shelling money out. So sometimes you are confused. ये करना है या नहीं करना है? करता हूँ तो मरता हूँ, नहीं करता हूँ तो मरता हूँ. So sometimes it's difficult to understand whether I should incur this, is this an expenditure or this is an investment? So how does a layman think about this and get a solution?
I think it's a very good question where everybody goes through that dilemma, right? Yes. I think very important is, again, if I talk on an individual level, spending money is again only a means. The end is your happiness. So one has to always keep in mind that what gives me happiness with regard to that particular expenditure which I want to incur, and whether I'm able to sustain that happiness going forward. So if I earn 100 rupees and I want to blow off 100 rupees, certainly it will give me happiness today, but it will give me trouble tomorrow if I don't earn. So therefore, one has to keep an eye very clearly that my current requirements I must do, and I must make a choice. Life is always full of choices. I have to make a choice of either having my happiness today versus having a balance to ensure my future. Now, it again varies from person to person. I wouldn't say that there is a standard rule for everybody, but it is very important that we should understand that money is not an end in itself. It is only a means to an end. And that end is the happiness that we get. I think we all are only longing for that happiness. So we have to be very careful what makes me more happy, where I think I should be spending now, versus should I balance between today's happiness and tomorrow's happiness also? So that's the decision one needs to take. And that applies to business also.
Sir, I think along with you being called a CFO, I think you should also be called as a CHO, Chief Happiness Officer, because you have summed it up very clearly that ultimately it is important to be happy, but
Absolutely.
also remember that we have another day to go to. Sir,
Yes.
we spoke about people who have already started their business, but what about the common blind spots which you may have when you start a business, especially when you don't have any professional advisor with you?
Right.
So, which are the blind spots?
Sure. I think one of the thing is that, doing any business today have lot of areas. Number one is to have all the legal clearances, because many a time people do not know whether they are legally following all the rules and regulations to comply, and invariably they end up having trouble there. So it is very important to have the right legal structure and legal approval for any business one wants to start. Second, one has to ensure that it has its feasibility in the long run. And while calculating that, it has to provide for its contingency, which is what I keep on repeating there, that one needs to keep that. Because invariably, what people end up doing when they don't have too many professionals to help them, they only try to go with their business things and other things gets ignored. And that is where they get stuck in some areas, because they don't have, big corporates have all the specialists working for them. But for a startup or an individual, it is very difficult to have these things. But today, there are services available where person can take the services of these at a reasonable cost and make sure that he starts on the right footing. One of the learning I got from Mr. Shiv Khera's learning You Can Win is that instead of doing things right, you must do right things. So if you take the first step right, the chances are you don't have to deviate from there. So it is very important. It may take a little longer, but make sure that you take the right step so that you don't have to step back and you are only able to progress. So that, I think, is a very, very important area where people should not ignore. Yes, I think I would again repeat that your backup plan or a contingency plan is very important. Your flexibility is very important, because, today's scenario, nobody can plan or think for a long term without incorporating the contingencies. And again, the example is 6 months back, nobody thought that, we will all be stuck like this, right? So I think business will change, but we have to find opportunities within that, and we need to have that ability to adapt to that change and yet come out with the opportunities. So I think these are some areas which one needs to keep in mind.
Perfect. Thank you. You are amazingly sharing such important bits of information. Sir, technology is here to stay. And I think finance will not be immune to that either. Along with artificial intelligence, IoT, we have got robo-advisors now. So where do you see, different opportunities and careers happening with the combination of finance and technology? Nowadays, it's called as fintech. So how do you see that? Yes.
Well, I think, you have very rightly said, today, nobody can exist without technology support. Technology has become the backbone. If finance is the lifeblood, technology is the backbone. And nobody can survive without that strong backbone of technology support that is required. And I think, especially since you talked about fintech, I will focus more on that. In every area where, technology is taking away the manual work which individual or the corporates were doing through the technology support, so that they no more remain, as a bean counter, as the term talks about. They become the analyst. So the data crunching is done by technology, and they do the analysis of that and help in terms of future forecasting, which can in turn help the business to take the right decisions or evaluate the alternatives. So that is the way the value addition from finance function can happen to the business. And technology plays a very, very vital role in taking away those mundane work, which, earlier people were doing. I still remember in my early days, we used to have facet machine where we used to do the totals. Now, nobody spends time in doing the totaling, right? Now, things have changed. But when I look at between what was happening maybe 1 year back versus now, today, all our accounting, closing, etc. is happening virtually. The stock taking is happening virtually through Zoom, right? The board meetings are happening virtually. The shareholder meetings are happening virtually, right? So you can imagine the technology has actually made it very convenient for people to become more efficient, to reduce their cost, to save on time, and take faster decisions, and to reach out to people faster. Today, I don't have to have that physical thing to look at it and do that. You can always have Amazon and all delivered to your doorstep. So same way in finance, it is very important that we focus on the faster decision analysis, forecasting, and we are able to do value addition to the business. And that, I think, is only possible because of the technology. And I would say this is just a beginning. There is a very, very exciting time ahead of us where things are going to change drastically. What is required is for every individual and professional to be ready to adapt to the change, and not only adopt, become expert on the change, so that they not only follow the change, but they are the front runners in that change and can take the competitive advantage.
I love the way you said they can be front runners, because that is also our tagline, sir. And when you mentioned that, data, today data is a priceless dynamic asset. Sir, so just a curious question. We had a trend since 2 decades where everybody went into engineering, IT engineering. And we know the scenario today. So with lacks of IT engineers around, is there some qualification or a professional course which they can do and get into this fintech? Any advice and suggestion on that, sir?
Surely, I think, see, today the technology is again, as I said, is a backbone. So any professional courses which are done, and I will not talk on the institute name specifically, but there are many institutions which provide this technical knowledge and support, where the individual who has the bent of mind on that engineering background can look at those fields and get oneself equipped with those technical qualifications, and then can utilize those qualifications into the fields, whether it is finance or whether it is supply chain or whatever that may be, and can actually combine both the fields together to get the maximum value. So I think it is extremely important. And I would say, today that there is no hard waterline available between the fields. Today, a person in finance also needs to be technically, if not an expert, but at least comfortable. Similarly, a person in technical also needs to know the finance very well, because there are decisions whether we will invest capital versus revenue on the technical aspect, whether you want to be cloud-based or you want to have your servers, for example, right? Now, those decisions are possible once he is also equipped with the finance information also, so that which makes more sense. So now what is happening is that the bifurcation is blurring between different fields. They are actually merging with each other.
Right.
So that is where I think, having a technical and finance, I think, is a great advantage, and that synergy is going to play a very, very important role in developing our future course of action.
Right. Sir, but in spite of lines blurring, what is your thought on being an expert in a particular subject?
Sure. I think you can see there are different aspects to this. You can be a great specialist on a narrow area, or you can be a general physician in all the areas. It again depends upon individual mindset. So I will take the medical example for that matter. Either you are a general physician, or you are a very specific, talking about only heart related, and within heart you may talk about bypass separately, or you may talk about non-operative care separately. So there is a specialization possible in every area. What is important is it varies from individual to individual where one's interest lies. Some people like to be a generalist, some people like to be a specialist, and then they want to pursue in that area, and that's their passion. So again, I would say that it depends on an individual where one's interest lies and where one wants to specialize. And both the fields are absolutely You know, it depends where one thinks one's strengths are, and one has to do their own SWOT analysis that, you know, where their strength, weakness, opportunities lies, and therefore they must take action accordingly.
Right. Sir, but the sachai is that everybody is confused. If you talk to youngsters in the age group of 20 to 30, the jargon would be handset, and the other word, which is top, is confusion. So they don't know whether they should pursue CA or CS or ICWA. It is a herd mentality. So whatever my cousin or his friend is doing, I just follow that. So 100 बात की एक बात. So if I'm confused, I'm a commerce student and I'm confused, what I should pick, which may or may not be right for me. So is there some success mantra or formula I can follow?
Absolutely. I think it is very simple. Whatever you want to start doing, just sit back and think whether after 10 to 15 years, if you were to do that work, will you feel happy about it? If the answer comes to you, yes, go for it. And it should also come as you know, you have hobby. Can it become your hobby? Because if it is a hobby, it never becomes your burden. And if you think after 10, 15 years, you are going to enjoy doing that, that's the area you must pursue, and not what your cousin is doing and what others are doing, because there will always be peer pressure, there will always be parent pressure. But I think as an individual, again, I would say happiness is the most important aspect. If you are not happy, you will not be able to succeed in your life. So you must have that, you must sit back, internalize what will give you that happiness after 10 to 15 years. Will you be happy doing that thing? If the answer is yes, that's what appeals to you, and you must go for it. I think that again is very, very important. We should not follow. Just imagine if Dhoni would have remained and followed his parents' advice and remained as a clerk, he would not have been successful batsman. Right? So therefore, I think it is important. What is your calling? What is your interest? That should be a prime importance, and not what others say and what society tells you and all. That's what I would say.
Sir, your qualification list is very long. And just to understand, what you say and how you have actually lived it, can you please share your educational growth and your professional growth? For example, you told me that you have done your commerce and CA together, right? So was it need-based or want-based that you shifted to another professional course one by one? So please share that at length.
Okay. So I think, as I said, from my childhood, number was something which I was always attracted to. And I always used to like playing with numbers. And CA was in my mind because I had seen one of my cousins being very highly talked about. And I said that, okay, that seems to be an area to move towards. So I had that in mind from the beginning. So I never had any doubt or confusion, as you just talked about, that I will do anything else. So that was there in my mind. And I saw people, when you have that, things start moving in the same line. I took my commerce field even in the school, and then I did my BCom. But when we were there in BCom, I think sometimes your friend circle also helps. It has a positive influence. So everybody wanted to do CA together with BCom, and it never felt that it's a burden, because it always was that, okay, I think we can do it. There's nothing impossible, but only thing is you have to stretch yourself, because when you're doing two things, when you're doing articles and you're doing 2 exams and professional exams and all. But the mindset was that if you're doing CA, BCom should come very easy. So therefore, that extra confidence that came, that we were never afraid of clearing BCom, right? So I think that gave us a better confidence, did our CA. And then once that happened, then it actually gave us better confidence that now we can actually pursue. And I will also share with you that we were very conscious about the monetary aspect. And at that point of time, CA was the cheapest course, and its return on investment was very high, because when you do medical and all, you had to spend a lot of money, and we were all, kind of commerce students. So I think that was also one of the criteria, but not the only criteria. The ROI was very fast, because it was very, very economical to pursue that course. And then I think ICWA was a very natural extension to that. That, if you have done your accounting, costing is the natural extension, and CS is there and law is there. So I think that was more to say that if tomorrow one field gets limited, and I told you as a backup plan, you always have another backup plan, you have the third. But I think when I continued that journey, it was never to get a degree. It was more to get that knowledge. What is it there that I have not covered so far? So can I do the law and I can expand my knowledge? So that was the whole attitude. And when I did my CFA also, It was more to see the analytical part and the shareholding and all the forex part, etc., etc. I wanted to do that. So it was more on that, though I didn't clear on final because there was some ambiguity between FCA and CFA. And I got a letter from the Institute of CA to say that you can either pursue one and not both. So I did not get the final. But I think the idea was more to gain knowledge and improve yourself rather than saying that you have the certificate or the degree. I think that was the whole objective that was there. And basis that, I have consciously worked on different fields. I've worked in accounts, I've worked in treasury, I've worked in taxation, worked in M&As, worked in legal secretarial, worked in India, worked abroad. So I've worked share services. That has become a new norm nowadays. So I've consciously worked in different fields so that one acquires that practical knowledge, and then one needs to see how one can contribute or value add to the business through this experience. I think today's environment, it is very important that one is useful, not only in business, but also within your family. I think it is extremely important. Today, you have to make sure that you are useful to others. And for that, you have to create your own value. And that is where it's a continuous journey one needs to pursue. And I don't think getting that degree is enough, because you have to keep on learning every time. It never ends. It only starts from there, and you remain a student. As long as you remain a student, your growth never stops. So I think that's the basic feel that I see.
Correct. So people are not their behavior. You always have a choice. And when you have a choice, choose growth. That is the only thing. And if that is your bottom line, I think everything falls in place beautifully. Sir, thank you for sharing your personal journey and your professional journey. Sir, a few questions I will take from the viewers. Please share your questions. Meanwhile, I will go to another question. Sir, you mentioned about working on your soft skills. Every person feels that to improve my soft skills, I need to join a class. But sorry to say, just by joining a class, people really don't learn much. So you must have seen plenty of candidates, people working with you 10 years ago and now. So what are the commonalities which are bloopers, and what is the current generation they need to really work on?
Sure. I think a very important thing, and I learned this from my Buddhism practice, which says that you should always face the mirror. Most of the time, it is very important for us to acknowledge that we have a need for that improvement. Because most of the time, we deny that we need that improvement. So I think the first step is that we must face that mirror, and we must acknowledge that I need to improve in that area, and I have weakness in that part. Because I again, being a number person, I put it this way, that your strengths are your pluses and your weaknesses are your minuses. If you reduce the minus, then your sum total increases automatically. So therefore, if you keep on focusing, you must keep on focusing on improving your pluses, but you should also focus on reducing your minuses. So if you reduce your minus, your sum total automatically increases. I think if we have that attitude, then it doesn't remain that, somebody is criticizing me, but it is more that it is an opportunity for us to improve. And if we have that kind of an attitude, I think, again, I will quote my Buddhism practice, which says that converting poison into medicine. So every negative aspect or every criticism is a poison. You have to convert it into medicine for your own advantage. So that is where I think one needs to keep working. And as I said, it is a journey. No one in the world is perfect in all aspects. So there is no harm in accepting, or no shame in accepting that we have a need for improvement. And it can be any area. Once we have acknowledged and we are working, yes, I think the classes that you talked about, it gives you certain tools which you can work upon, but it's your everyday consciousness towards improving. Even a small step every day can lead you to a big success over a period of time. So I think one needs to keep on working in these areas. And I'm sure that, once we acknowledge and we work towards it with the time plan, there is always a possibility of improvement. And every day one takes 2 minutes to think that from yesterday, what have I improved today and what I want to improve tomorrow. I think even a small baby step, if you accumulated over 365 days or over 10 years, I think it can make a big difference in individual. And we all as a human being have to evolve. And it's a journey. We all have to keep on working. So I think there is no end to improvement if we have that approach and attitude.
Sir, you have not only studied law, CA, CS, books, but you've also studied life very analytically. That's why you are able to give formulas on every aspect I ask.
No,
So
I think it's-
long ago I had shared this, the 3 एक्का of life. That is, अगर मेरे पास ये 3 एक्के हैं, तो मैं हर बाजी जीत सकती हूँ. So exactly, sir has also shared the same thing. That is, analyze, accept, adapt, and one more T, which I will add from the new CFO and CHO, that is, add a timeline. I think that timeline is also very important, because if you don't have a timeline, then it will go on forever. So I would like to thank the viewers who have joined in. Thank you, Dr. Raviraj Ahir Rao, sir. Thank you. Hi, Bhavna. Thank you. You have a very busy schedule, but in spite of that, you are joining us. Thank you, dear. Thank you, Jyotsna, Mr. Devendra Shetye, Yogesh Kulkarni. Hello, Prabhu Raja. How are you, Prabha? Very good success mantra. Happiness is very important. Thank you, Preeti Desai. Sir, I will share about this lady, Preeti Desai. She is a grandmother. She is from Hubli, now in Pune. She never worked in her entire life. And after she became a grandmom, she started taking tuition classes. Today, she is teaching Vedic maths to
Wow.
school kids, college kids, and engineering students also, sir.
Yes, wonderful, wonderful.
Right? So,
Wonderful.
hats off, Preeti Desai. She is an amazing lady, and she reminds me of Sudha Murthy ji, because she has the same very docile and loving personality. But what strength and power in her teaching and the way she conducts her classes. So I think we need more Swayambhus like Sir, like Mrs. Preeti Desai, and we need aspiring Swayambhus to take charge. A big shout out to everyone who needs help. Sir is kind enough to give his time and share his unique, finesse about finance. It was not a planned rhyme, okay? And but it is amazing, and he's so humble. Look at the way how he has matched the number formulas to life formulas, and I'm sure we all have learned a lot today. So I will say, choose growth, continue blooming, continue shining, and God bless you. Rock on. And thank you, sir, once again for being with us. Swayambhu is
much.
blessed to have you.
It's always a pleasure, and it is real pleasure talking to you. I think it has been very, very engaging interaction, and look forward to your great success. All the best. God bless you. Stay safe.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Jai
you.
Hind.
Jai Hind.